Welcome back. I'm Curtis Smith. Today, Albuquerque Master Gardener Lori Katie is going to talk to us, answering some of the questions they get about winter composting. Lori, you do winter composting, don't you?
I do. I compost all year around.
And how do you do that?
I have a compost bin that I really quit adding to about the 1st of November, so it'll be ready to take out and by spring. And then I start trench and hole composting. You just go dig a hole out in the garden and about 8 to 14 inches deep. Just put in your kitchen scraps, dig it in, and cover it back up.
And I also know you like to compost paper because you've given me some of this shredded paper. This is mine. It's been sitting around in a pile for a year, and it still looks like it did when you gave it to me. It's nice and moist. It ought to be composting, but it's not. You use this, don't you?
I use that all the time. I love kind of freaking people out by composting paper, because they always think first that the ink will poison you. The ink is soybean based. It breaks right down. If anything, it might even add a few minerals to the garden. Now, this is my paper that I have been composting for about a year.
Let's compare your paper and my paper. I like your paper better.
There. Pete, you can't just put it out there and let it compost. It just sits there, as you can see.
Right. I'm saving mine to use in other times, but it will sit and wait, won't it?
It will sit and wait on you to feed it.
So you mixed it into your soil?
I actually didn't have soil to mix it into. I had caliche.
Okay, we'll be precise.
I tore my grass out, and after about an inch and a half, I thought it was rock at first, but it was caliche. And I worked that loose gradually by soaking it and digging. It's very slow. It took me a couple of years to do my whole yard to break through the caliche. And then you just work the paper into it, or into your soil or your sand or whatever you're working with. If you want to be cautious, equal parts. But I actually went about 3 parts paper to 1 part of dirt. And then it's very important that you mix nitrogen into it. If you do not mix the nitrogen into the composting paper, you will have Curtis's paper.
Good paper stockpile. And that's what's really wrong here, is it doesn't have the nitrogen to feed the organisms, which will do the decomposing.
Right.
Where in the soil, you've got a lot of organisms in the soil, but you've got to give them the nitrogen to feed the process.
That's correct. So what I would do is I mix my paper with my soil, and then I sprinkle in nitrogen.
And this is ammonium sulfate here, but you could use ammonium nitrate. You could use any lawn fertilizer that contains nitrogen.
And mix it in, I don't know, a cup to a 2-foot square or something. Dig it all in together, and then the other thing is, it'll just sit there if you don't water it in.
New Mexico needs water.
You need to water it in and keep it moist, at least for the first couple weeks. And then you just let it do its thing.
How about if we use this?
This makes a great mulch, a great row cover. It'll prevent weeds from coming up and let the water through. It also will break down, but it's much slower.
Right, the smaller the particle, the faster it will break down.
What I used was 1/32 of an inch shred. Many banks use this and private businesses, and you just they're happy for you to take it off their hands.
So that's easy to do. But remember, the soil, mix it in, add the nitrogen, and add the water. Or put this down as a mulch, water it down so it doesn't blow away, and then let it slowly decompose there. But you said in this one you also did the hole composting, where you dig a hole.
Put in my kitchen scraps. I did that over the winter. And just let it go, and that helps break it down first also.
And do you use worms in your composting?
I have worms in my compost bin. If you compost your yard well, you will have earthworms.
I'm going to open this one up because we've got worms here.
One of my neighbors told me one time, if you have good soil, they will come. And I found out they do come.
Well, there we go. Now this is one that came from a compost pile, and they need the organic matter. This is a compost worm, or a red wiggler.
Yes.
And this is good for adding to compost because they'll stay in the compost pile, whereas the native earthworms run away.
That's true. In the winter, you don't see them if you're digging in there. They seem to go down underneath into the lower layer and hibernate, and then they come out. But on nice warm days, you will see them out around the compost bin in the dirt, or if you're out digging, sometimes the earthworms come to the top.
That's right. Well, Lori, thank you. Thanks for sharing how to make paper and caliche into good soil and some of the other things you're doing in your compost.
It just takes patience and perseverance.
And nitrogen and water.
And nitrogen and water.
Thank you.
Thank you.